stained glass like busted in pieces on the ground.
All right, so when it comes to climate change, I've heard various entities described as the canary in the coal mines. I've heard the Northwest, the Puget Sound oysters as being the canary in the coal mine. We've heard of various birds. We've heard of polar bears, Arctic ice. Well, another canary in the coal mine, Major League Baseball. And we're going to talk about that later in the program today on our Climate Beat. We're also going to look at a graph that I think is another level of clarity in terms of understanding temperature change. We're also going to talk about the response to the Great March for Climate Action's new video. But we've got a lot of other ground to cover first today. I do want to take a second to thank Brother Trucker for their tune downtown to kick off this program, broadcasting from downtown Des Moines in the Skywalk. If you walk by us, wave. I might not wave back because I may be so engrossed in the conversation I won't even notice you're there, but still wave. It feels good. My producer, Maddie, she loves that sort of thing. I also want to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club and Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility and the Great March for Climate Action for sponsoring this program. And I want to thank my business supporters, including Gateway Market. Gateway is the sponsor of this segment of our show, and had a lovely breakfast at Gateway Market today with this guy, Dean Lerner. I cut loose. You know, normally I'm the guy who has granola or yogurt or maybe pancakes on a Saturday morning, but today I had Eggs Benedict. Dean, you're a witness. I went crazy on Eggs Benedict.
You were a member of the Clean Plate Club.
The Clean Plate Club, right? And then you asked for help with yours. Dean Lerner was with me, folks, and Dean is a longtime advocate for a lot of important work. He was the head of the Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals, and he continues to advocate for elder care, for appropriate oversight of nursing homes, and to try to call attention to some of the ongoing problems in our nursing home system. I do want to, before we, and actually this makes a great segue into the first item we want to talk about when it comes to elder care. Branstead is going to have nothing but headaches the rest of this year and next, and I think he is finally in trouble. More and more people are understanding what kind of person he is, let alone what kind of governor he is. Now he is coming out against Larry Hedlund, the 25-year DCI veteran, the agent who the agent who blew the whistle on him speeding along at 84 miles an hour, only to find himself fired. Branstead is totally justifying the Department of Public Safety's decision to dump the guy, and that takes some. I got to tell you, that takes some guts. The evidence and the public impression on this are not lining up on his side of this at all. So what does he do? He keeps the issue alive by blasting Hedlund and by demanding. I love this. He's demanding a report. This is a 500-page document produced by Hedlund's attorney regarding Hedlund's dismissal. Okay, maybe Branstead knows something about what might be in there that he thinks can help his case, but the truth is, demanding that only further keeps this in the news before the public eye. And, it also, I think it's horrible that he was tooling along at 84 miles an hour, risking public well-being, risking other drivers. Also, flaunting his nose at the law. I'm sorry, you're not allowed to go 84 miles per hour, even if you are late for a breakfast meeting or lunch meeting with one of your big donors. Sorry, no exceptions. So, this just keeps it alive, but it also allows us to see what kind of governor this is. And, and I have my own experiences with the governor when it came to elder care when I was a state legislator, but nobody understands more about what Governor Branstead's track record on elder care is and continues to be than Dean Lerner. So I'm just thrilled to have Dean on the program with us today. And we got about 4 or 5 issues we want to talk about. And one relates to the legislature, the successful legislature. Now, you don't hear me say successful and legislature too often in the same sentence, so just run with that, okay? The successful legislature passed a bill that included 2 new ombudsmen to make sure that our seniors in our nursing homes were getting adequate care. Again, it passed both chambers. It was bipartisan. The governor vetoes it. Dean, what is going on there?
Well, he's got also a sort of a torrid history on the Ombudsman's office and what he's done in terms of their treatment and the influence that he wants to exert over that office, which is supposed to be completely independent under federal law. But this is really an embarrassment to the state that we only have 8 ombudsmen. The Institute of Medicine says we should have around 27. They gauge it on how many residents we have in our facilities. And this was going to add 2 to the 8 to give us a total of 10.
So still like half.
17 below the number that the Institute of Medicine would have us. And why is that important? Because these individuals are responsible for really looking after caregiving in facilities, and indeed, they also have responsibility for oversight of the state survey agency to kind of make sure that it is doing its job to cite citations and for its part, keep people safe in nursing homes. So apparently he just doesn't care about the safety of folks in nursing homes. And I should also add that these are positions that he often goes to. We just don't have enough money to do this, even though there's a $1 billion surplus.
That's right. There's a $1 billion surplus.
Most of the money that pays for these ombudsperson's position actually comes from the federal government. Now, tax dollars are tax dollars, and that's important to know. But these are really important positions, and we ought to be at 27, not at 8, and at least at the 10 that had he not vetoed the additional 2.
Yeah. So now it's this is not the only time we have seen Branstad or some key lawmakers come out against adequate inspections. There was a fundraiser in West Des Moines, I believe, it was representatives from one of the big nursing home chains, I believe, called the Manor Care.
Out
Thank
in
you.
West Des Moines.
Right, Manor Care, and I don't even know where they're headquartered. I know it's not Iowa. I think Texas. I want to say.
I'm not sure, but it is a national organization and one of the bigger chains.
Yeah, and there are more and more. You got a little fruit fly.
There's a fruit fly buzzing around here.
Man, how'd that fruit fly get in here?
We'll get him.
How'd that fruit fly get by our amazing security system? Next thing you know, there'll be rabid raccoons and bears in here. Okay, keep an eye on the door, Maddie. All right, good. The Manicare had this fundraiser, and a bunch of state legislators. I think all Republicans actually in this case.
There were 3.
Okay, 3 Republicans. It was 3 Republicans, and then you were head of the Department of Inspections and Appeals at the time.
Correct.
And lo and behold, I mean, Manicare was there to dole out campaign contributions to these Republicans, and to promote its agenda. Part of which is, don't regulate us, don't inspect us, just look the other way. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here. We got everything under control. Granny's doing just wonderful. And the lawmakers, and they partially, maybe entirely because of the generosity, shall we say, of Manicare, campaign contributions, they, at least one of them, I think maybe more than one, called you and basically, presented Manicare's position and asked you to back off. I mean, do I have that right?
Pretty right. Actually, the Department of Inspections and Appeals does regulatory work on behalf of the federal government also. And we were in the throes of what they call a decertification. The caregiving at the facility was substandard, and they were in the process of potentially losing their certification to take care of people and receive Medicare and Medicaid for that. That's a 180-day process, and they held this event at the facility, raised some money, and I had 3 voicemail messages on my office telephone.
One from each of the lawmakers who got money?
Each of the lawmakers.
Well, weren't they
money.
well behaved? Now that's the kind of accountability you want to see in your politicians. You give them a campaign contribution, and then they immediately do what you want. They don't put it off and make the call like a week later, or they don't blow you off altogether. They get right on the phone and they call the person trying to represent the constituents that the industry is trying to get away with things on. That's the kind of accountability I expect in my politicians.
Well, and I actually left some legislation behind which hasn't seen the light of day, which could have corrected that. It could have given the legislators an excuse to not go after the regulator and rather to support the regulator, saying that during the pendency of an investigation of that nature, they're supposed to butt out. They shouldn't become involved because it puts them in an awkward position to support their donors and their constituents versus doing what's right and supporting the regulatory body and enforcing the laws. So that piece of legislation hasn't seen the light of day, and I don't expect it ever will.
Okay, so even though there were 3 Republican House members, I believe, maybe there was a senator in there who a few years back were opposed to increased oversight and inspection of nursing homes, the Republican majority in the House and perhaps even Republicans in the Senate supported these additional 2 ombudsmen to make sure our seniors were getting adequate care.
Correct.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what the vote was this past year. How was it? Was it pretty much a landslide? Was it maybe it might have even just been a voice vote?
You know, I haven't inspected that particular vote, but nonetheless, it was a bill that landed on Governor Branstad's desk, and he slapped a big veto sign on it.
Right.
And I just, for the life of me, can't understand why he would do that.
Well, I mean, I think to me, it's obvious why. The same reason that these lawmakers called you, all 3 of them, after getting a check from ManorCare, they called you immediately. The same reason here. Branstad gets tremendous money from the nursing home industry. I saw that back in 1994, I believe it was, when it bothered me that Medicaid money, public money, could not go to care for Granny in her home. She had to be sent to a nursing home. And so the nursing home got all that money, and obviously they made quite a bit of profit off the money, off our tax dollars going to care for Granny. I thought that was just wrong. So I proposed, I was on the Human Services Committee at the time, and guess who was head of the Department of Human Services? Chuck Palmer. Some things never change. Palmer, Branstad.
Deja vu.
Yeah. So anyway, we discussed this proposal I had to allow Medicare funding to follow the parent or whoever it was to wherever they might want to get care, even if it was in their home. And that was not acceptable to the Republican leadership in the House, but what they did agree to was a 40-person pilot project. We were allowed to have the Human Services Department identify 40 families where we would try this. Passed the House on a voice vote. I mean, in other words, it wasn't controversial. Once we agreed to narrow it down, try it on 40 people. And I think some of the nonprofit and locally owned care homes were okay with it. Then it passed the Senate, no problem. Went down to the governor's office, veto. Same situation. And the reason, I mean, it wasn't, I was informed by somebody on the inside that what happened was the lobbyists for the nursing home industry. And by the way, I believe that the words nursing home and industry should never be in the same sentence. So this should not be an industry. This is about the most precious people in our life. They should not be subject to being cared for in an industry. But yeah, it was very clear that the nursing home lobbyists went down to Governor Branstad, reminding him of, at that time, a $10,000 donation, and insisted that the legislation be vetoed. And again, just like these 3 Republican lawmakers with ManorCare, Branstad was very obedient and vetoed the legislation that had been bipartisan. It had been supported by Republicans and Democrats. So some things don't seem to change, and we need to get people more riled up about this. People need to know what our governor and some others are doing in terms of their lack of concern for the most vulnerable citizens in our community.
Well, and the Register also reported on $50,000 in donations shortly before the Branstad-Culver election. $50,000 at that time, and then recently reported on another $25,000, timed sort of suspiciously to these couple of vetoes that relate to nursing home care and. That's exceedingly problematic.
Yeah, I mean, really, the nursing home industry, just like a lot of corporate interests, a lot of lobbying groups, they view these kind of campaign contributions, whether they be direct campaign contributions to a political party, like Mid-American does, $50,000 to sponsor the inauguration, those kind of things, or to lobbyists themselves. They view that as an investment because they get so much more back. They get so much more money out of the deal than whatever they spend up front, and they get lighter regulations. And that's what this is. This is, the money's not the big deal here. The big deal is we had more eyes on the ground. We had more people keeping an eye on Granny and making sure that she was getting adequate care. And apparently she's not. And this gets even worse. So when we come back from our break, we want to talk a little bit more about the money issue, but I'm fascinated to learn about the the national scandal involving the over-medication of our senior citizens. I'd like to talk about that as well. We got a few other issues to cover, and you are welcome to join the conversation, folks, at 244-0077, 244-0077. If you want to call toll-free, it's 855-244-0077. My email address is fallonforum@gmail.com. I do want to thank again all of our business sponsors, especially Gateway Market, for sponsoring this segment of our show. But I got to recognize some of our other supporters, and I really want to encourage you. If you believe in this program, again, you're not going to hear us talking about Branstad's love affair with the nursing home lobbyist on Jan Michaelson's show or on Simon Conway's show. And you're not going to have local businesses like Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling, appearing in ads on those shows. Or Hawk Restaurant, that's HOQ, Hawk Restaurant down in the East Village, where 90% of the food comes from Iowa farms. Or the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit. That's coming up on November 9th, a great opportunity where you can learn how to grow your small business. Also, do not forget Diana's Wedding Cakes. Every good progressive talk show needs one wedding cake sponsor. So, hey, check out Diana's when you're looking at a wedding or some similarly wonderful function. Also, Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering, where I had the 500-calorie chicken dinner. Not that I need to cut down on my calories, but it was good. Really, really good. Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering, and my favorite place to be right now this time of the year is on their rooftop patio. Also, folks, Community CPA and Associates. Check out all those businesses and others that support this program on the Fallon Forum website. It's www.fallonforum.com. Now, Dean, you sent that little fruit fly over to me.
I did indeed.
Maddie, we're going to a break, and we're going to get some fly swatters out of here. Okay.
Studios. This is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of WebcastOneLive.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Every day, all right, maybe not every day, at least every week, but often several times, at least a couple times a week, I hear somebody who tells me about their dream to start their own business. And I'm always so excited about that because Yeah, it's a lot of work when you have your own business, and you can expect to maybe go for 6 months to 3 years without making any income, but you get to do what you love doing. You get to take your dream and turn it into an economic reality. And that's one reason I'm real excited about this Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit coming up. And again, heck, we're all immigrants. But it focuses on people who may not understand the culture and the laws as well as some of the rest of us do. And but a lot of it's pretty new stuff. For example, a lot of what you'll learn this year is how to deal with changes that come through the Affordable Care Act, new changes to the tax code. It's a great opportunity to really see how you can launch your idea into reality. That's going to be on November 9th. Go to IES.org. And I want to thank the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit for sponsoring this segment of our program. Again, also just a quick tip of the hat to some of my other business supporters, the Fighting Burrito at 13th and Locust, custom-made burritos that are very, very tasty. And also they've got a place in Ames as well on Welch Avenue. Story County Veterinary Clinic on Highway 30 between Ames and Nevada. That's Dr. Kim Holding's business, and well worth, she does fantastic work. And then Ritual Cafe, one of my other favorite businesses in Des Moines, also at 13th and Locust. Dean Lerner is with us, and you are welcome to also be with us. The phone number to call is 244-0077, 244-0077. We're talking elder care. We were speaking about the governor's veto of legislation that would have funded 2 elder care ombudsmen, 2 additional inspectors to make sure our seniors were getting the care they need in nursing homes. I have just, and Dean knew about this, of course, but I've just learned about the another crisis in the industry. And again, I hate to use the word industry and nursing home, industry and elder care in the same sentence, but that's what it's come to. This is really troubling. Over medication of seniors. I heard about this, and I'm just appalled that our seniors are being intentionally over-medicated. Dean, tell us more about this.
Well, there's a national initiative started last spring by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. I refer to them as CMS, to reduce the utilization of antipsychotic medications in nursing homes, which are noted by study to be incredibly prevalent and also incredibly harmful to the folks who they're being administered to. And the studies show that they're being administered to these people a lot for facility convenience, so that they don't have to have the number of staff and the trained staff that they would otherwise have to appropriately care for these individuals in nursing homes.
So this is a way of cutting back on labor, on staff costs?
Well,
I'm trying to be. I'm trying not to be cynical, but I feel like I am.
Bluntly, it's a way of saving money to knock people out instead of taking care of them, and it's unacceptable. It's obscene, and people should be outraged by it.
Pills are cheaper than employees, is what you're saying.
Pills are profitable to the drug industry, and the pharmacies and oftentimes nursing homes have pharmacy connections. These are damaging, harmful drugs, and they ought not be administered, especially to residents with dementia.
Let me try to wrap my mind around this. The types of drugs that are being prescribed, the types of drugs that are identified as being part of the over-medication problem, they're intended to do what specifically?
They're intended essentially to knock the resident out, but they're sold as calming drugs and drugs to ease anxieties. And I won't say that in every instance these drugs are not dedicated to a purpose that they ought to be, but there's an awful lot of over-medication simply for understaffing of facilities and facility convenience, and it's just plain wrong. It is not just a problem in Iowa; it's a problem nationally, and CMS has made an effort to address this.
Do we know what percentage of seniors in our nursing homes are receiving those calming drugs?
It's a very high percentage. I can't quote you the exact number. I can tell you that the goal of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services is to reduce the utilization by 15%. That goal had been to do that by last December ending. They didn't get that far. They didn't get near 15%, but they're still chipping away at that goal. And they're seeing some good results in some states, not so good in others. And I don't have the Iowa data, but it's something that we all ought to hope that our Iowa facilities are paying particular attention to and addressing in a very careful way.
Now, it's almost so offensive that it's hard to imagine that anyone, even a corporate boardroom seeking the highest possible profits, would merely subscribe a drug intended to calm anxiety simply to avoid hiring the appropriate level of staff needed to address those concerns without basically a chemical dependence.
And there are many ways to do that, behavioral modifications, but you really have to have the training and the staff resources to be able to do that adequately. And facilities are understaffed. The reports show that 90% of the facilities in the nation suffer from understaffing. And who suffers? It's the residents who suffer.
Yeah, and understaffing by design. I mean, you make more money when you pay less workers, right?
And we have mostly for-profit nursing homes in our state of Iowa.
Yeah. I can see how this would cut down on costs, but it also is going to, I don't know how many additional pills every day are thus prescribed, but I imagine that they add up quite a bit and mean significant profit to the pharmaceutical companies.
Well, and the Medicare expenditures for these drugs are just phenomenal, and that would be an unnecessary cost that those monies could be dedicated to caregiving and not to drugging.
So, I mean, So there are lawsuits afoot. And are they happy? Is there a national effort, a federal effort? Or are these at the state level? How are people responding to this problem?
Each state has coordinated a coalition with all the stakeholders to address these matters, and there is litigation state by state going on. I'm aware of a case or two in California that civil litigation against a nursing home for over-medicating, over-drugging its residents and causing harm, and the court in a settlement agreement imposing injunctive relief to basically keep people safe, to keep people from being drugged and knocked out unnecessarily.
And what are the allegations that again? Do they say basically what we've just said, that these drugs are being prescribed because they're not needed to being prescribed in order to avoid appropriate staffing levels? And is there some effort to kind of show a connection with the pharmaceutical industry, showing how they're making more money because of the over medication of these patients?
All of the above.
Okay, so I mean, indeed, have you seen any clear cut paper trail, any smoking gun that shows that these pharmaceutical companies know this is going on, maybe have even enabled it and support it? I mean, is that out there? Are they that careless not to have covered their trail?
I don't think it's quite that much carelessness.
Okay.
I think it's more design and careful design, as is the way in which they hide their profits from public view. So it's rather insidious.
It's very troubling. So what is going to happen here in Iowa?
Well, hopefully Iowa is very invested in this national effort to reduce the utilization, and hopefully those facilities that are especially out of line with the norm would be focusing their attention on that. And all that information about the utilization of these antipsychotic medications is actually now posted on the Advancing Excellence website. And I should have had that website at my disposal, but Nursing Home Compare has this information on it, and you can look up by state and by individual nursing home the utilization rates.
Well, I mean, again, the nursing home industry does not treat, in my opinion. I mean, I saw plenty of examples of this as a lawmaker. I would pop in and do surprise inspections. I mean, I had no authority to do an inspection, but I did have authority as a lawmaker to visit any nursing home at any time. And I did, and they were, it was just a source of consternation for them. They They were very upset when I would show up. And probably because of the things I would discover. Urine-soaked sheets that were stinking up the hallways like you wouldn't believe. Patients who were calling for help and not getting any attention at all. And a big part of the problem is they are understaffed and the care workers are underpaid. And we have made efforts over the years to try to improve paying workers. And again, I see how this whole drug scandal ties in with that. You know, again, use a pill cheaper than an employee, and it doesn't talk back to you, and it doesn't require vacation or overtime. But, you know, the legislature, to its credit again, there I go, saying legislature and credit in the same sentence, did pass legislation that focused on getting more, you know, getting better levels of pay for direct care workers. And apparently that is also the subject of a Governor Branstad veto. We've got to run to a break, Dean, but when I come back, I want to talk about that as well, and about some of the other ways in which money influences what happens with our senior citizens. So, folks, stick around for that conversation, if you would. We'll be back in literally just 2 minutes. And I want to remind you of the phone number as well. Give us a shout if you'd like to join the conversation at 244-0077. And again, I want to thank all the folks that make this show possible. The nursing home lobby has not funded the Fallon Forum. Yeah, that's pretty clear. And actually, I would never take... Only small businesses and nonprofits doing good work need apply. And one of those is the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit. Again, a great event coming up on November 9th at Drake University. More information at ies.org. I want to thank some of my other business supporters as well. Sergeant's Garage. You got a car problem? Go to Graham Gormley on 6th and College. He will fix that thing up. He's always done a really good job for me with my vehicles. Dan Kelly's real estate business. Dan Kelly was on the show yesterday as a state lawmaker. He also sells real estate in Newton. Check Dan out. And again, just another quick reminder, Ritual Cafe, a great place for coffee, tea, smoothies, and music and paninis. I'll be back in just a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
The dawn of a new era begins.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm not the guy who cared about love. I'm not the guy who cared about fortune.
Welcome back to the forum, folks. I want to thank Max Wellman and the Max Wellman Trio for that music to kick it off. And I want to thank the $1 Million Marathon for sponsoring this segment of our show. They just rolled through Des Moines. I don't know whether you're a marathon runner, Dean. Maybe you're a runner.
I have run a marathon.
Have you really?
Yes.
I was just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Well, you look lean and trim enough. Well, you could have.
It's been a few years, but
Okay.
yeah.
Well, this is an amazing event. 160 people running a leg of a marathon, each running a marathon, passing the baton to raise money for cancer. They're up to close to $500,000 raised for cancer research. Yeah, and above and beyond cancer is the group putting that together. So anyway, yeah, and I want to thank Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering for also sponsoring this segment of our show. We are shifting gears just a little bit here. We were talking about the Well, we talked about the veto of the 2 ombudsmen to oversee care for our seniors in nursing homes. We talked about, which to me is just horrific, the over-medication scandal. Seniors being given drugs they don't need in order to cut down on staff and to increase pharmaceutical company profits. I mean, it's just hard to believe this stuff is actually happening. But again, staff in nursing homes aren't paid very well anyhow. They're paid horribly low wages. It's really tough work, and the turnover rate is really high. So, I mean, back when I was in the state legislature as well, I remember Bill Witt, the legislator from Cedar Falls who sat next to me. He was also very passionate about trying to find more ways of assuring that direct care workers receive better wages. And lo and behold, the legislature, upon whom I have been lavishing all sorts of praise today, uncustomarily, did a good job. They passed legislation, again, bipartisanly, supporting more funding for direct care workers. And Governor Branstad vetoed that. Again, why? Do you have any insight, Dean? I mean, Dean was the head of the Department of Inspections and Appeals before Rob Roberts, under Governor Culver. I mean, maybe do you have any insight as to why he would do that?
Well, his reasons that he gave for vetoing this is that they just couldn't, the state just couldn't keep track of whether the money, that additional Medicaid money, by the way, was going to actually go to the direct care workers. I just don't believe that for a second, that you can't keep track of where the money is going.
Well,
and
if you can't keep track of the money, where the money's going, maybe you need some new staff. Maybe somebody's not doing their job.
They already have a cost report that the nursing homes have to submit that could keep track of this for them. Okay. So that was one of the reasons given. And the other reason given was even more incredible, and that was
really
that,
more incredible
than that, that the industry was in a better position, and I do say industry, to decide where the money goes than the legislature in dedicating the money to care. And you know, the bottom line on that is those monies are going to go right out the door to profits instead of going to the caregivers, and it's an abomination.
I mean, Governor Branstad has to know that is a lie. He's got to know he's not telling the truth. He's not dumb. He understands politics. He's got to know that what he's saying is a lie. Am I making that up? I mean, am I missing something? Is there some way you can possibly believe that an industry charged through legislative decision to spend a certain amount of money, increasing the pay of its lowest paid workers, that when you say, okay, we're going to let them decide what to do with the money instead, that they're going to do anything? I mean, maybe they'll. I mean, come on, how dumb do we look? I guess is what I want to say. I mean,
and by the way, my hat goes off to those incredible workers who every day do things that you and I would struggle to do. They are paid very low,
and there's less of them.
Most are uninsured. They come to work sick because they have to feed their families on a very low wage. The turnover rate,
it's huge.
The turnover rate, by the way, has been measured recently. It's about 64 or so percent.
Wait,
64%.
Wait, in any given year, out of 100 workers who start on January 1st, 64 will be gone by Christmas time?
I'm not sure that it's an annual thing,
okay.
So I would hesitate to say that exactly. But the figure is 64% turnover rate for direct care workers.
Wow.
And at an expense of, I think the number was $180 million expense associated with that turnover. You'd think that they'd figure out that we could spend that $180 million in caregiving and increase the wages and the training of these individuals, quit drugging folks, add staff, and do what's right by Iowa's elders and the disability community.
What kind of profit is the nursing home industry making these days? How much? What are their P&Ls looking like?
The beauty for that for the industry is nobody knows, and the industry just loves it that way.
It's public money. Most of the money they spend, most of the money they get comes from us. Correct?
Medicare and Medicaid comprise a huge percentage of the resources.
I guess there's also a bunch of money from private pay.
There's
clients.
Private pay, and then there's what they call client participation, which is turning over their Social Security checks. to the facility.
They call that client
participation is what.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah. But they're, the problem is, Ed, that they're always crying poor, and the legislature is all too quick to say, yeah, we just have to get you more money, instead of asking the question, where is the money going that we're giving to you?
So can I get you to like take your IPERS check, your pension check from the state? I assume you get some IPERS, right?
I do.
Could you just sign that over to me and call it a talk show guest? What did you call it again?
Client participation.
Talk show guest participation. I love that. Client participation. Basically, give us your Social Security check. There's so much wrong about this.
There is so much wrong about this.
And again, that the governor would take the axe to a relatively small amount of money. I mean, the nursing homes are already making money hand over fist. Everybody agrees that. I mean, I presume that Governor Branstad himself would agree that workers are paid too little. Maybe he wouldn't. But the legislature, Republicans as well as Democrats, agreed that workers are paid too little.
And they voted to dedicate the additional Medicaid money next year to direct care workers, and he vetoed that bill.
Now, here's my question. On these two vetoes, the veto for the 2 additional ombudsmen, the veto for the modest increase in payment in wages for the direct care workers, since Democrats and Republicans supported that, was there any discussion about an override of the governor's veto?
I've not heard talk of that at all, Ed. I wish and hope. It's
too late, isn't it?
I'm not sure what the deadline
1st.
is for overriding the veto, but there's always next year, and we can always hope that the governor will come to his senses and do what's right by Iowans instead of doing what's right by campaign contributors. And
I mean, I'm disappointed that. Well, maybe Democrats are part of the problem, but I'm disappointed that the Republican leadership didn't say, "Hey, we know we're the same party as this governor, but he did the wrong thing. He vetoed our legislation. We're going to go back and with a 2/3 majority, which would be what, 34 in the House, 33 in the House, I guess. Am I right?
That's
and
about 2/3.
66 in the 66
in the House and 34 in the Senate.
67 and 34, I guess. But yeah, you would think they'd be able to do that. My very last vote that I took as a state lawmaker after 14 years in 2006, it was in a special session that was convened in order to attempt an override of Governor Vilsack's veto of legislation on eminent domain, trying to restrict the use of eminent domain by cities, well, actually by developers and corporations through cities, through counties, to take land for private development. And we reconvened. And actually, it was personal to me because I'd fought a lot on that issue, and in fact, I'd floor managed the bill, so I was pretty happy that Republicans were willing to, I guess I was pleased that Democrats were willing to come back and override their own party's, the Democratic Party's, party governor's veto, and it happened. I mean, we did it. So there's precedent for that. I'm sorry it didn't happen this time because clearly Republicans also agreed and disagree with their governor that this was a good idea.
The public just needs to be made aware of these things so that the public can weigh in and exert some influence over their legislators to tell them what they expect of Iowans for Iowans.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've talked about how much money comes in. Again, a big part of it's money. I mean, Governor Branstad's reasons are about as lame as you can get. I mean, they don't stand the sniff test. They don't submit well to logic and to basic common sense. So clearly something else is happening here. And clearly, I mean, it's really no secret. It's the campaign money. It's the financial link he has to the Iowa Healthcare Association and other nursing home interests.
Well, and he's got a chance to weigh in on doing something right there, too, because the Department of Human Services is proposing some rules that address where the Medicaid money can go. And right now, Medicaid money is going to these associations that represent the industry to essentially their purposes are two. One, to get them more money, and two, to get them less regulation. I myself don't think that Medicaid money ought to be going to these associations for that purpose. And on the Iowa Healthcare Association's tax form 990, it lists over $1 million, $1.3 million or so in membership dues.
Wow.
And the executive director of that organization had on this particular tax return, a salary and benefits of in excess of $317,000. In addition, the lawyers representing the nursing homes are paid by Medicaid dollars, win or lose, and we don't know how much.
Well, again, it seems like Branstad is much worse on elder care issues than Democrats or Republicans in the House or Senate. Within that universe, within the legislature itself, is there a noticeable break along party lines in terms of which lawmakers tend to be more friendly to the consumer, to the folks in the nursing homes, as opposed to those that seem to line up with the industry's interests?
Well, first let me say that I don't want to be here today and be perceived as condemning every nursing home in the state of Iowa for bad care. I'm not here to do that.
I got you.
And there are many good caregivers. There are a wonderful group of direct care workers in the state who take care daily of our loved ones. So let's start with that premise. But what was your question, Ed?
Are Democrats the good guys on this stuff and Republicans the bad guys? Or are Democrats also receiving campaign contributions from the nursing home industry?
I will tell you from my experience that this is not a Democrat-Republican issue. When it comes to campaign contributions, they all have their hands out, and there is something to be gained for greasing their palms.
So you're saying that even Democrats might be on the, my words, not yours, on the take from the industry.
Your words, not mine. I tried.
Well, they might be receiving donations. If you look at campaign finance reports, you will see nursing home interest money going to Democrats as well as Republicans.
And you will see votes that you wouldn't expect to be taken on issues that you would think folks would vote the other way.
So you're saying the Democratic Party platform might say one thing about elder care, and you might see lawmakers voting the other way, and there might be some connection between those votes and money into their campaigns from interest groups.
I'm saying that campaign contributions are a sickness, an illness, and a disease that's wrought a cancer upon our public officials, and somebody needs to do something about it.
Now, the whole campaign finance system just got its own version of being over-medicated with Citizens United, but that's a whole nother conversation. But again, it ties in with so many things, and clearly, and I saw that again in my time in the legislature when Branstad vetoed the legislation that I had drafted on a pilot program for Medicaid funds to be used for private care, for care in people's homes. So some things never change. If anything, though, the Branstad administration has kind of hunkered down and become even more unmovable on this issue. And with, again, the arguments being presented, some of them are just amazing because they have so little common sense. Anyway, Dean, we could talk more about this, but I've got one more segment of my program to launch into, and that is Friday's Climate Beat. And we are going to talk a little bit more about the Great March for Climate Action's initial push to this week. This is big news. Just this week, beginning to formally accept applications from prospective marchers. Along with that, releasing a wonderful promotional video that has really received a lot of good reviews. And I also, on a somewhat lighter note, want to talk about the latest significant player, so to speak, to get the climate change problem. And that would be Major League Baseball. I'll be back in a minute. And Dean, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed rider, it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back, folks. That's Mary McAdams. What a sweet voice she has, and what a wonderful addition to our cultural community here she is in Des Moines. I want to thank Gateway Market again for sponsoring this final segment of our program. God, anytime we talk about climate change, folks, Gateway Market's a great sponsor because, when you support a local business like Gateway Market, when you've got a local grocery store that serves a lot of food they get comes from local sources, you're cutting down the carbon footprint quite a bit. For me, I hardly drive at all. But, when you live within a mile or two, heck, you can do that on a bike sometimes or by bus, maybe even walking. So anyway, check them out, folks. That's Gateway Market and Cafe. All right, this is our Friday Climate Beat, and I'm going to kick it off with sharing our Great Climate March video, which again, this has it hasn't gone viral, but it's got a lot of hits, and we're getting a lot of really good responses. Some of you might have seen it already, but I'm going to play it again, and appreciate you taking the time to check it out and give us your feedback. Glaciers are melting.
Crops are drying. There is unprecedented hurricane calamity.
Farms and cities are flooding.
Monster storms in the summer. Storms are worse.
And more frequent.
And they are destroying our homes. Ask your neighbors.
Ask your loved ones.
Can they see the changes? Look out the window. It can seem hopeless.
But so did this. And this.
Are you ready to step up?
Like these people did. Or these people.
Or these people.
Or these. Next year, 1,000 people will journey across the nation to set a new standard for the American dream.
How many steps will you take?
I will take the steps.
From sea to shining sea.
As far as I have to.
As long as it takes.
For my children. For my grandchildren.
And the future of people and life everywhere.
7 million steps.
246 days.
3,000 miles.
Patriots know that the struggle for freedom, peace, and justice never ends.
The Great March for Climate Action is this generation's call to action.
March with us from LA to DC, taking the message that we have the conviction to ensure that all life can enjoy a safe, healthy, and inhabitable planet for all of time.
How many steps would you take?
Well, I'm Zach Heffernan. Zach Heffernan is the staffer, the Marcher director, and he did a great job at putting that video together. All the other folks involved providing voices and critique and help with the production. I think it's really well done. I think it's been well received, and hopefully it'll continue to spread around the country. It's already gone. It's already been out there quite a bit, and we are getting more people saying, "Yeah, I like the message. I understand the problem. I understand the crisis that climate change is. I am willing to do my part in this effort." So, again, feel free to share that. It's on the Great Climate March website, which is www.climatemarch.org. Okay, on a slightly, it almost feels wrong to say a lighter note relevant to climate change, but on a lighter note relevant to climate change, Major League Baseball. I'm not. This is only a slightly a lighter note. They're getting it. Okay. The Atlanta Braves and the Colorado Rockies played at Coors Field in late April. The temperature was 23 degrees. That made it the coldest game time temperature in MLB history. Okay? Hands down, the coldest temperature. And so people, my friend Frank from Des Moines would say, well, what about global warming? Well, it's climate change. Climate change, the big scene, climate change, the big issue, results in all sorts of strange weather changes. Overall, you've got warming, but specifically, you'll have things like the coldest day ever. Look at what do we have in May in this state? In Des Moines, the record for snowfall in May had been 1.1 inch. We had over 6 inches on May 2nd and 3rd. That's a record. And that is related to the climate models that show we're going to have more extremes. Colder temps, hotter temps, overall more warming, but more precipitation, also more drought. That's all part of the predictions. And Major League Baseball is experiencing this. Okay, so we had snow at Target Field. There was hail at Yankee Stadium earlier this year. Buckets of rain from coast to coast. In fact, more than 30 games. This is interesting. More than 30 baseball games have been postponed. Now, I know we're about ready to start the final portion of the season after the All-Star break, but so far, 30 games have been postponed due to weather. Last year, the total for the whole season, 21. We're already more than half the postponements more than last year altogether. Okay, so these crummy conditions have been wreaking havoc with the schedule, obviously. So there's not a lot, you don't have a lot of makeup time. Okay, so they're trying to squeeze them in, and they're also trying to, wait out rain delays. There was one game, Tampa Bay playing in Cleveland. They waited 5 hours to finish a game. Okay. In St. Louis, there was a 4.5-hour rain delay. And this just goes on and on. So, again, I know insurance companies get climate change. The U.S. military gets climate change. Apparently, Major League Baseball also gets climate change. All right. The weekend approaches. I'm excited because I'm looking forward to the weekend, folks. I hope you are going to have a great weekend as well. Again, I want to thank my guest, Dean Lerner, the former head of the Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals. Despite no longer being in that position, he remains an incredible, vocal, and committed advocate for our senior citizens. And again, I always look forward to seeing his pieces in the Des Moines Register. In fact, today, He has a letter to the editor on the editorial page. So check that out. Check out this podcast when it comes out. Share it with other people. People need to know about the content of this program. We're talking about important issues that are being neglected that you will not find being discussed on other radio shows. Again, thanks to Maddie Kane, my producer, to Webcast One Live for providing the studio. I'll be back on Monday.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.